French, Spanish and drama in Cambridge House Grammar School in Ballymena. And as you can probably tell from the reading that I chose today, French is a very important part of my life. And as many of you know, I'm not long home from a holiday to Lyon in France, where I lived during my degree. And as I've said, I have a great love of the French language, France, all things French. And looking back into my childhood, I can trace where this fascination with all things French began. And it wasn't quite as you would have imagined. Now, I'm going to show my age here, but it wasn't watching Tots TV. If you don't know what that is, it was a children's puppet show with a very fun French protagonist and two other little rag dolls as well. And it wasn't starting my very first French lessons with my primary school French teacher, Mrs. Fraser, or indeed beginning my French studies with Miss Mimlin and Miss Johnson in Cambridge House, the school I'm now teaching. And it wasn't even through studying the language for GCSE or A-level, or indeed living abroad. I, in fact, can trace the origins for my love of French to Saturday evenings, at home, watching a very much loved British BBC sitcom. Can anybody guess what it is? Absolutely. Hello, hello. And again, with the poem that I chose, you'll understand why. So hello, hello, as many of us will remember, followed the life of René, a bistro owner from the town of Nouvion in the northwest of France during the Nazi occupation, during World War II. And many of the episodes saw René and his family ducking and diving from the Gestapo, putting up a front of compliance in front of German soldiers and getting into all kinds of scrapes alongside Michel of the Resistance, whose harebrained schemes always started off with the iconic words, "Listen very carefully, I shall say this only once." But the show itself for me led to a fascination into the work of the French resistance. And indeed I ended up studying literature and film based on this era whenever I went to Queen's, and now also I teach the topic as part of the A-level French course. So you can imagine my surprise a few weeks ago when I stumbled across a film being made about the work of Charles de Gaulle in the Quartier Saint-Jean area of Lyon. And it's an area of the city which has remained very unspoiled for centuries, and it's known for its cobbled streets, authentic restaurants, and original architecture. And there in the middle of the city were Gestapo officers walking around the streets of Lyon in long black coats, period cars, 1940s style shop fronts, bicycles, and resistance members peering out from around alleyways and handing out their secret tracts. And my imagination and mind went into absolute overdrive with this, because the city of Lyon itself has deep connections to the work of the French resistance. And as I chatted, as I often like to do when I'm in France, in French with some of the members of the production team, they were able to tell me that I'd missed out on an even more interesting day of shooting the previous day, as they had shot some scenes in the Croix-Rousse area of the city, which is a few miles away from where we were at that particular time, focusing on the arrest of a man called Jean Moulin. Now, Jean Moulin is a name that resonates very deeply within French history and in the broader context of World War II. Born in 1889, Moulin was a senior civil servant who joined the French resistance after the fall of France in 1940. And he was tasked by Charles de Gaulle with the monumental job of unifying the fragmented sections of the French resistance movements, a job which he heroically carried out despite huge personal risks. Unfortunately, in 1943, he was captured by the Gestapo and imprisoned at the Montluc prison, where he was repeatedly tortured by the commandant Klaus Darby, known as the Butcher of Lyon, due to his horrific treatment of prisoners. Despite his horrendous torture, Moulin never betrayed his comrades, or indeed the cause he fought for, and reportedly died as a result of his injuries whilst being transported to a concentration camp. Nowadays, streets, schools, town squares and parks proudly bear the name of Jean Moulin as a symbol of someone who protested against tyranny and oppression. And like many of his fellow countrymen and women, Jean Moulin's story is a powerful testament to standing up for what one believes in, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. And the great thing about the members of the French Resistance was, this was not one single person. For every Jean Moulin, there was a Lucille Braque. For every Lucille Braque, there was someone else. And there were so many people at that time who were brave enough to stand up for what they believe in. And as we sit here this morning, we're reminded of a biblical call to be strong and courageous in the face of injustice. It's written in Joshua 1:9, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." And much of the work of the resistance for me exemplifies this courage and steadfastness. Just as Jean Moulin and his fellow resistants made a stand against the injustices of his time, we as a church are called to make a stand against the injustices of our world today. The prophet Isaiah reminds us in Isaiah 1:17, "Learn to do right, seek justice, defend those in need, take up the cause of the oppressed." And as we come to the end of Pride Week, and after having celebrated one of our biggest Pride services in this church to date, I feel we here in All Souls have first-hand knowledge of supporting those in need and helping those who other religious groups seek to sideline and seek to oppress. However, as David reminded us in his reading this morning, we know that not everyone shares in our vision. For the duration, the entire duration of our Pride service last week, which is known as a celebration of diversity and inclusion, a delegation of protesters calling themselves the United Christian Witness protested loudly outside this building, heckling churchgoers as they came in, hurling insults at those of us leading the service. And for me, it all felt rather surreal. I am, however, very thankful to the PSNI for their role in keeping our church congregations, our churchgoers, our congregation, and this church family safe in the face of what I see and will call out as unspeakable prejudice. But for me, it would be very easy to feel victimised by these events. But for many of us, it was also a moment of incredible strength and incredible hope. The overwhelming support which All Souls has received from the Reverend Linda Kane, the clerk of our denomination, from other allied churches, from friends and members of the public, and also a call from the Harbour Faith Community Church in Carrickfergus, amongst others, were truly heartening. And it is wonderful to see that we are now part of a wider movement of churches who seek to make our places of worship more open, more inclusive, and more welcoming to all. In these times, it is important to remember the words of Jesus in Matthew 5:10. "Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Our stand for inclusivity and justice is not always easy, but it is blessed and righteous work. This outpouring of support reaffirms our commitment to inclusion and standing up for our beliefs. We are called to be a community that embraces all people, regardless of their background, and to stand against any form of injustice or discrimination. As we move forward, let us each and every one continue in this mission to create a more inclusive and just church and world for everyone. The Apostle Paul encourages us in Galatians 6 and 9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. This morning and every morning, let us draw strength from these words and from the example of those who have gone before us, standing firm in our faith and our commitment to justice and inclusion. As I've mentioned many times this morning already in prayer, together let us be a beacon of hope and love in our community, living out the teaching of our loving God in all that we say and all that we do. Amen.